People always think betrayal breaks you, that it turns you loud, messy, desperate for closure. They imagine tears on bathroom floors, late-night calls that go unanswered, public scenes that make everyone uncomfortable. What they never expect is silence. The kind that settles in when someone decides they're done explaining themselves. I was 25 when I learned that silence can be sharper than screams. Back then, I still believed love meant growing together, not being quietly replaced by someone shinier. My name is Emily Carter, and for a long time, I thought building a future with Jason Miller meant I was finally doing something right with my life. We met during our sophomore year in college, thrown together by a project neither of us wanted but both of us took seriously. Jason had presence. Professors remembered his name. People listened when he talked. I noticed early on that he hated being average, even more than he hated failing. That edge made him attractive. I wasn't the loud one in the room. I was the one who stayed late, double-checked details, fixed things no one else wanted to touch. Jason liked that about me. Or maybe he liked how it made him feel needed. We started studying together, then working together, then slowly living in each other's lives. It felt natural, like we were leveling up side by side. We moved in off campus, splitting rent, sharing cheap dinners, talking about how one day we'd build something real. Not just a job, a business, a name. Our project started small, messy, half-baked. Some nights Jason carried it, fueled by caffeine and ego. Other nights, it was me, researching, restructuring, catching mistakes before they blew up. When he doubted himself, I reminded him who he was. When I got stuck, he pushed me forward. At least, that's how it felt in the beginning. I told myself this was partnership. This was love. Then Olivia Brooks showed up. She transferred mid-semester, walked into our advanced lab like she didn't need permission to exist there. Smart, composed, always 10 steps ahead. Her project was already gaining attention, not because it was loud, but because it worked. Olivia didn't care who liked her. She cared about results. Jason noticed immediately. At first, it was admiration, then curiosity, then something darker underneath it, something I didn't recognize right away. He started talking about her work more than his own, about how clean her execution was, how she didn't overthink things. I didn't feel threatened. I trusted him. I trusted what we'd built. That trust made me slow. His time started slipping away. When I asked for help, he dodged with half excuses, saying he was slammed, saying he had meetings, saying he'd circle back. He never did. I'd find him instead with Olivia, helping her refine her project, staying late, energized in a way I hadn't seen in months. The irony was brutal. Whenever he hit a wall, he still came to me, asked for feedback, asked me to fix things. I did it without hesitation, because part of me was terrified that if I stopped being useful, I'd disappear completely. One afternoon on campus, I saw them together, heads close, laptops open, laughing quietly like the rest of the world didn't matter. I asked Jason to come work with me for a bit. He didn't even look up. Said he couldn't. Said he had too much to finish with Olivia. The way he said it wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was indifferent. I told myself not to overreact. Love means patience, right? The next day, it happened again. Same spot, same energy. I finally asked him why he never had time for me anymore, why our project suddenly felt optional to him. I reminded him of our plans, our future, the life we talked about once everything worked out. His expression hardened. He said I was holding him back. Said I asked too many questions, that I couldn't do anything without him. Said I was exhausting, that there was no future for us and that I needed to move on. Every word landed heavier than the last. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. I just stood there, wondering when I became someone he could discard so easily. That night, I packed my things and left. For weeks, I barely recognized myself. I questioned my intelligence, my relevance, my place in any future at all. I replayed his words until they felt true. Maybe I was average. Maybe I was replaceable. The silence that followed was suffocating, but inside it, something shifted. I realized crying wouldn't rewrite the story he'd already decided on. If he thought I was nothing, I'd let him believe that. While he moved on chasing validation and proximity to power, I chose something else. Focus. I didn't know yet what I'd become. I only knew this wasn't the end. And one day, he would hear my name again, just not in the way he expected. After Jason left, my apartment felt like it was breathing disappointment. I sat on the corner of my bed, notebook open, laptop humming, and coffee cold beside me. Every corner screamed memories. His laugh, his casual smirks, the way he would brush past my suggestions like they were minor annoyances. My heart felt heavy, but strangely, I wasn't bitter, not yet. I allowed myself a moment of vulnerability, staring at the empty space where dreams we shared once lived, whispering to myself, am I enough? Did I misjudge him? Was I not brilliant enough? That doubt was sharp, but I used it as fuel. Each pang of insecurity morphed into focus, and I realized that my path forward wasn't revenge, it was elevation. I needed to become untouchable in my own right. I started by examining Olivia Brooks from afar. The girl was like a machine, precision in every movement, results in every presentation. Jason was enamored, and I realized why. Validation. Olivia wasn't human to him yet. She was a standard he wanted to measure himself against. I clenched my fists, smiled quietly, and whispered, you're not the benchmark anymore, Jason. I will be my own standard. The next day, I dived deeper into actionable skill building. I mapped out a project of my own design, something beyond college, beyond temporary gratification. I researched productivity frameworks, leadership strategies, digital workflow systems. I even created a mini-team online, freelancers from different cities, students, and small business owners willing to experiment. My first client was Frank, a grizzled cafe owner whose inventory and employee workflow were a mess. He doubted me at first, asking, you really think you can handle this, kid? But within weeks, the cafe's revenue improved, team morale surged, and Frank even laughed freely for the first time in months. That tangible success filled me with momentum. I added small rewards for myself, an occasional caramel latte, a rare walk at sunset, but only after meaningful progress. Every late night spent debugging a spreadsheet, negotiating with an underperforming team member, or testing a new marketing strategy was another brick in my foundation. Meanwhile, Jason and Olivia continued their campus charade. He laughed too loudly at her jokes, leaned closer than necessary, mirrored her smirks and gestures. I watched once or twice, felt the sting, then redirected the energy. The pain was now fuel, not poison. I pushed my skills further. Online courses in advanced project management, mentorship in leadership principles, strategy consulting, and even small-scale failure simulations became my obsession. I kept detailed logs, lessons learned, mistakes corrected, workflow adjustments. Each challenge honed me further. Mismanaged client databases, miscommunicated timelines, technical setbacks, they were no longer obstacles, they were tools for refinement. My intelligence sharpened, my confidence surged, and my personal brand subtly grew. Emily Carter was no longer the girl left behind. She was a rising force. Jason began noticing subtle differences too, though he didn't admit it. Once, in a campus hallway, I caught him glancing at my latest project presentation pinned on the notice board. His eyes lingered longer than casual curiosity allowed, almost like he recognized potential he had underestimated. Olivia, focused as always, didn't notice or didn't care. That small, almost imperceptible moment lit a quiet smile inside me. I had started winning, silently, without confrontation. By the fourth week, I expanded into public-facing projects. A local youth entrepreneurship seminar became my first showcase. I presented my workflow strategies, mentorship methods, and lessons learned from small clients. Every chart, every real-life example resonated with the audience. The nods, the appreciative glances, the emails from attendees asking for guidance, they were subtle affirmations. I was capable. And I wasn't doing this for Jason. Not anymore. I did it for me, my growth, my elevation. My late nights, my tiny victories, my relentless work ethic, they had transformed me from someone doubted into someone quietly respected. And yet, there was a thrill in knowing the inevitable ripple effect. Jason, somewhere, would hear about the seminar or see someone quoting my advice or get an email referencing my methods. He would recognize, too late, that what he had dismissed was now untouchable. I exhaled, feeling anticipation like electricity under my skin, my fists tight with determination and my heartbeat steady. Let's see who's really replaceable now and who's going to wish they paid attention. And deep down, I relished that silent promise. This was just the beginning. The morning of the seminar hit like a low hum of anticipation. My fingers brushed over the edges of my presentation folder, heart beating steady but fast, mind sharp and focused. The city outside buzzed with the usual chaos, horns blaring, neon signs flickering, people shuffling, but I filtered it all out. Today wasn't just another talk. This was my statement, my proof that the Emily Carter Jason had dismissed was gone, replaced by someone who knew her worth and could command any room she entered. The auditorium smelled faintly of brewed coffee and polished wood. Attendees filtered in, students with worn notebooks, young entrepreneurs clutching laptops, and mentors exchanging nods of approval. I spotted Jason tucked in a back row, casually leaning back, smirk in place, but eyes betraying a flicker of interest. Olivia perched beside him, notebook poised, her expression perfectly controlled, but her posture tense enough to betray her awareness. Microtensions, the subtle silent signals that said more than words ever could, always fascinated me. I stepped up to the podium, cleared my throat, and let the slide projector light the room with my first visual. Workflow optimization. Mentorship systems. Digital project management. I narrated my recent projects, the cafe where inventory mistakes almost tanked operations, the online store missing client data for weeks, the nonprofit struggling with fragmented communication. Each example became a mini-story: mistake, analysis, solution, result. I saw heads nod, eyes widening, pens scribbling. This wasn't bragging. This was teaching. This was proof that persistence, planning, and skill could carve space where doubt once lived. Jason shifted, ever so slightly, leaning forward now. A subtle tightening of his jaw. Noticing. Realizing. Perhaps wondering if leaving me had been a mistake, or maybe questioning how quickly the gap had grown between us. Olivia didn't miss it. Her gaze sharpened for a heartbeat. I smiled quietly to myself. Recognition was not what I sought, but it made the victory sweeter. Questions flowed in. How do you keep a team accountable without being overbearing? What's the key to scaling mentorship systems? How do you manage clients who ignore advice? Each answer I delivered was clear, concise, sprinkled with humor to keep the room alive. Yes, you can totally survive a team treating deadlines like suggestions. I've been there. Trust me. Laughter. Engagement, connection, real-world learning paired with storytelling. This was the magic formula. Between questions, I noticed a young woman from a local startup scribbling notes furiously. Her eyes lit up as I explained iterative planning, accountability loops, and small milestone rewards. That spark, the moment theory clicked into practice, hit me like a jolt. This was impact. This was validation. Not the kind you begged from someone who left, but the kind you built, piece by piece, with your own hands. Jason rose slightly as the session ended, his voice low, almost hesitant. Emily, that presentation. I didn't expect. It was impressive. I met his eyes with neutral composure, letting silence amplify the weight of my words. Thanks, I said, letting it linger. No warmth, no invitation, just the acknowledgement of fact. He swallowed, realizing he had underestimated me, and for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed Olivia's surprise too. Even she noticed the subtle shift, the quiet acknowledgement of competence that didn't require validation. Stepping outside, the air smelled faintly of exhaust and street vendors. The city pulsed around me, indifferent yet alive, reflecting the rhythm of my thoughts. Each late night, each painstaking project, each small misstep had led here. I felt no triumphalism, only a quiet power, the kind that doesn't scream but radiates. The girl who once questioned her worth, whispered to her reflection at 2 a.m., "Am I enough?" had grown into a woman who knew she was indispensable to her craft. Emails, messages, and LinkedIn connection requests awaited me. Collaboration offers, mentorship inquiries, workshop invitations, proof that my work resonated beyond the room, beyond immediate recognition. Jason's discomfort lingered in the background, Olivia's carefully maintained composure palpable, and I allowed myself a small, private smirk. This wasn't revenge. It was elevation. Quiet, unshakable, and irreversible. By the time I returned to my small office space, the sun was dipping low, casting amber streaks across the windows. Laptop and notebook in hand, I mapped out the next series of workshops, planned mentorship sessions, and prepared client feedback loops. Every day was an opportunity to extend influence, to sharpen skills, to rise further without needing anyone's permission. As I jotted notes for upcoming sessions, a faint thought crossed my mind. The first wave of acknowledgement was only the beginning. Public seminars, digital workshops, one-on-one mentorships, these were stepping stones. And Jason, Olivia, anyone else who underestimated me, would quietly watch the wave grow, powerless to interfere. Their presence was now a footnote. My story was the headline. I paused, fingers hovering above my keyboard. Next big seminar. Next client. Next victory. The quiet thrill of anticipation settled into my chest. I had proven one thing. Skill, persistence, and self-belief were far stronger than loud confrontation. And the best part? The ripple effect had only just started. Let them watch. Let them notice. Let them question. The real game was just beginning. The city was settling into night, lights blinking like scattered fireflies against glass towers. Emily adjusted her laptop bag and took a slow sip of cold coffee, her mind still buzzing from the seminar. Emails piled in, startup teams seeking advice, nonprofits requesting mentorship, and a digital strategy conference invitation. Each one was a marker. People were noticing, silently acknowledging, and, most importantly, investing attention where it mattered. She smiled faintly. She didn't need Jason's approval. His awareness was merely a side effect, not the goal. By the time she reached the co-working hub the next morning, her rhythm was precise, mindset-focused, schedule-tight. The elevator reflected a calm, composed Emily, someone deliberate, strategic, capable. The girl who doubted herself in the dead of night had been replaced by someone quietly unstoppable. Maya waved from the desk. First workshop starts in 30. Jason's office called again. Let them watch, Emily said, voice steady. Workshops ran like clockwork. Emily guided a small startup team through system optimization, addressing mismanaged projects with gentle correction and encouragement. She recounted the Frank Cafe case with precise lessons on accountability loops, client communication, and incremental growth. Each question from the participants, resistant clients, tight deadlines, conflicting team priorities, was met with concise advice and subtle encouragement. Her mentorship wasn't just instruction, it was influence without overt control. During a brief coffee break, Emily stepped outside. The scent of roasted beans mixed with a faint rain hint, grounding her senses. A young entrepreneur waved, excited to discuss a potential collaboration. Emily walked over. I loved your question this morning. Let's talk. The conversation was smooth, professional, and quietly empowering. Connections were made, trust established. Every interaction reinforced her emerging reputation. She was becoming the architect of tangible change. Inside, the microdynamics played out with subtle precision. Jason lingered near the hall, jotting notes, occasionally pausing to watch Emily interact. His jaw tightened once, a slight hesitation in his step as he considered her progress. Olivia, composed as ever, offered polite nods, her eyes briefly widening at Emily's adept handling of the participants' tough questions. Tiny gestures, slight reactions, they were the silent indicators of a shift Emily no longer needed to actively chase. By evening, she was planning the next mentorship phase in a quiet conference room. Each blueprint, each email, each project outline was deliberate, a strategic layer upon her growing network. Emily paused, pen hovering over paper, savoring the quiet victory of structure, precision, and foresight. Success wasn't in applause, but in results, in growth, in visible progress others couldn't ignore. She glanced at the cityscape through the window. Lights flickered across her face, catching the corners of her eyes, reflections of the world she was shaping. She didn't need to dramatize her rise. The impact was tangible, unstoppable. Jason's subtle hesitation, Olivia's momentary surprise, client acknowledgement, markers, not endpoints. The real transformation, Emily knew, was ongoing, relentless, quietly brilliant. As she finalized emails for new client follow-ups and workshop outlines, she leaned back. Anticipation hummed in her veins, not desperation, not excitement, pure, measured energy. Each seminar, each mentorship, each small win layered upon the last. She was building a foundation that couldn't be shaken, a presence that demanded attention without force. A notification pinged. A major startup wanted her for an advanced strategy consultation. Grin touched her lips. Emily had begun to transcend observation and expectation. Skill, strategy, and calm confidence were her tools. Everyone watching, Jason, Olivia, colleagues, clients, were witnessing, without words, the emergence of a force they couldn't underestimate. And Emily, quietly dominant, allowed herself one thought: the best was yet to come. Morning light seeped through the glass towers, painting the office in streaks of amber and shadow. Emily paused at the window, latte in hand, watching the city pulse with life. Cars threaded the streets below, pedestrians weaving through crosswalks, a rhythm she once envied, but now merely observed. Her mind flickered briefly to Jason's confident smirk during the last strategy meeting, Olivia's poised yet calculating glance, the echoes of doubt that had once tried to define her. Every slight, every dismissal had been archived, repurposed into strategy, skill, and quiet authority she wielded without fanfare. The inbox chimed with a soft, insistent rhythm. Startups seeking guidance, mentorship requests from juniors, client feedback forms, scheduling emails, each one received meticulous attention. Emily scanned them with precision, mentally categorizing what required direct action, what could be guided subtly, and what was best left to unfold naturally. Her replies were succinct but impactful, nudging outcomes toward growth without performing dominance. Satisfaction flickered within her, influence exercised without announcement, authority recognized without confrontation. Maya approached, tablet in hand. Emily, Frank's cafe report is finalized. The client's ready for a walkthrough. Excellent, Emily said, voice calm but confident. Let's walk them through it. The call flowed effortlessly. She asked pointed questions, allowing the client to stumble across their own insights before offering refined suggestions. Small pauses punctuated the conversation, each engineered to create understanding rather than compliance. By the end, nods and subtle smiles confirmed what Emily had quietly orchestrated: ownership, empowerment, and trust. Jason's hand hovered above the desk, tapping lightly, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Olivia's tablet shifted in her grip, fingers momentarily frozen mid-scroll. Their reactions were tiny, yet they carried weight. Recognition without confrontation, awareness without control. The momentum Emily had built was untouched by their microactions, her authority unshakable in its subtlety. Emily moved through the junior mentors, crouching to meet a hesitant designer's gaze. Her questions guided without instructing, her presence reinforced yet did not overshadow. Each nod of understanding, each spark of self-confidence, each solved problem quietly extended the lattice of influence she had meticulously constructed. She was deliberate, unassuming, and unstoppable. By afternoon, the workshop room buzzed with participants exploring advanced project management strategies. Emily facilitated discussions, posed challenging hypotheticals, and injected subtle prompts that guided participants toward discovering solutions themselves. She celebrated incremental victories, transformed minor errors into teachable moments, and maintained an environment where growth was both safe and inevitable. Jason shifted in his chair, barely suppressing a sigh, a fleeting furrow of brow betraying a recognition he dared not voice. Olivia paused mid-note, lips pressing into a thin line, uncertainty flickering behind her composed exterior. Both witnesses to her command, powerless to derail the trajectory she had carved. During a brief coffee break, Emily reflected. She allowed herself a flicker of memory, long nights of self-doubt, the sting of betrayal, the moments she had questioned her worth. Those memories no longer shackled her, they sharpened her insight, honed her patience, and reinforced her deliberate, unshakable strategy. Every challenge overcome, every slight transformed into fuel, had built the foundation for influence that radiated outward in quiet but undeniable waves. Evening shadows stretched across the office. Emily finalized the schedule for the next series of mentorship sessions, client consultations, and workshops. Her movements were deliberate, precise, every decision, every action, each tiny interaction calculated to maximize influence. Outside, city lights flickered against wet streets, reflecting in the windows like shards of controlled brilliance. Emily caught her reflection, posture straight, eyes focused, an anchor in a storm, steady, unmovable, quietly dominating the currents around her. Jason leaned back, thumb brushing the edge of his notebook, fingers drumming a subtle rhythm of hesitation. Olivia's foot shifted, a hand brushing the tablet as if to steady herself, micro-gestures betraying awareness, doubt, and recalibration. None could impede the trajectory Emily had set. Her impact extended silently, measured in outcomes and subtle acknowledgments, far beyond the reach of their petty tensions. Packing her bag, Emily allowed herself a fleeting, nearly imperceptible smirk. Her reflection lingered, framed by city lights and shadows. She breathed deeply, steady, focused, unstoppable. Like a lighthouse igniting in a storm, her influence would reach far beyond the room, the building, the city itself. The tide had shifted, imperceptible to most, but irrevocable in its sweep. The storm had only just begun. City lights shimmered like molten gold against the glass towers, reflecting in puddles and the glossy streets below. Emily stepped onto the rooftop terrace, her coat brushing against her knees as a cool breeze teased loose strands of hair from her face. The city hummed beneath her, a living mosaic of ambition and chaos, every honk and murmur echoing the pulse of 1,000 untold stories. She let herself pause for a heartbeat, feeling the culmination of every late night, every small setback, every silent victory converge in a steady rhythm within her chest. Jason appeared at the terrace edge, hands tucked into his pockets, shoulders stiffened with tension. His gaze flickered toward her, eyes narrowing slightly, a subtle shift that betrayed curiosity and, maybe, a hint of awe. Olivia lingered behind, tablet clutched as if it could shield her from the realization she had underestimated. For a moment, she hesitated mid-step, lips pressing together, a tiny gesture that Emily noticed without distraction. They were present, yet powerless, caught in the gravitational pull of influence Emily had cultivated quietly, meticulously, deliberately. She let her eyes sweep across the skyline, city lights dancing across glass and asphalt like fleeting sparks of recognition. Her phone buzzed, messages from her men's and clients. One read, "Emily, just implemented your strategy. Results exceeded expectations. Thank you." Another, "The workshop framework worked perfectly. You've changed how we approach projects forever." She allowed herself a faint smile, warm but unspoken. Recognition was not her goal, impact was. Influence did not seek applause, it manifested in outcomes, subtle yet undeniable. A soft gust lifted her coat, carrying the faint scent of rain over asphalt and neon reflections. Emily breathed deeply, grounding herself in the moment. Every misstep, every doubt, every early morning, every sleepless night, it had all forged her into someone who could shape outcomes without needing to dominate the room. Her mind replayed the early months, the initial betrayal, the sleepless nights questioning her own worth, the quiet hours mastering new skills. Those memories no longer burned, they illuminated the path she now commanded. Jason shifted, a brief flick of his fingers against the railing, almost imperceptible. Olivia exhaled sharply, an unguarded motion that spoke volumes. Emily observed them with calm detachment, her quiet authority a contrast to their subtle tension. She offered no gloating smile, no triumphal posture, just presence, deliberate and steady, as if the air itself acknowledged her mastery. Their reactions were real, human, but ultimately inconsequential to the trajectory she had forged. Rain began to fall in fine, silver threads, making the neon reflections shimmer like liquid light. Emily's mind wandered to her men's around the world, applying her frameworks, embracing lessons she had imparted. Every nod, every subtle affirmation, every quietly implemented strategy, her influence rippled outward, unseen yet transformational. This was legacy, not a monument of words or accolades, but a living, evolving impact on people and projects, subtly shifting tides, quietly carving canyons in the world she touched. Her own reflection caught in the terrace glass. City lights streaked across her face, gold and blue mingling like molten streams. She allowed herself a brief flicker of satisfaction, not pride, not arrogance, but the calm certainty that she had moved beyond mere survival, beyond recognition, into a state of influence that was unshakable, invisible yet eternal. Jason's lips pressed together, eyes narrowing slightly before he blinked and looked away, caught between admiration and silent reckoning. Olivia adjusted her grip on the tablet, glancing down at her notes, momentarily unsettled by the quiet authority that radiated from Emily without a single word spoken. These small, human microactions punctuated the moment, tension without confrontation, power without noise. She turned back to the horizon, the cityscape stretching infinitely. Every street, every light, every faint silhouette of movement carried echoes of her efforts. She breathed in the electric night, letting it anchor her, letting it remind her that true influence is subtle, deliberate, and everlasting. The world would continue to move, Yet every thread she had touched would carry forward her silent mastery, her quiet vision, and her unwavering presence. And then she whispered to herself, barely audible, almost lost to the wind, "This is only the beginning." Like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog, the tide I've set in motion will find every shore, unseen yet undeniable, carving paths where none existed before. Her gaze lingered, the rain falling around her, city lights shimmering, hearts quietly shifting, lives touched in ways no one would ever fully see. This was her legacy, silent, deliberate, unstoppable, yet intimately human. The culmination of doubt transformed into mastery, of setbacks forged into strategy, of betrayal transmuted into quiet, unassailable power. She did not need applause nor validation. She only needed to move, act, influence, and watch the world align itself with the force she had quietly become.